My name's Emily Miller. I'm the Director of Marketing at Wilmac. I've been with the company for a little bit less than 3 years. To tell you a little bit about Wilmac, we were founded in Rochester. We're now owned and led by our President and CEO, Steve McDonald. He's also an Oak Hill member and wasn't able to be here today, unfortunately. But like I said, thank you to him and Joe for allowing us to use their club. We have been a provider of workforce optimization solutions for over 30 years now, and we have the pleasure of working alongside and representing industry-leading partners like Five9. So thank you to them for joining us. Now, introducing Jaime Reloj. So Jaime has a really impressive background. He's been working in contact center, business development, and product management roles for over 20 years. His experience in building out and understanding AI-powered products, it started with his own company, which built AI and behavioral science applications specific to wellness, fitness, and healthcare markets. He then took over at Inference Solutions, the market-leading AI-powered intelligent virtual agent and conversational AI company. Inference was then acquired by Five9 in 2020, and Jaime's diverse background, it led him to becoming the RVP of IVA, which is Intelligent Virtual Agents, and AI there. Jaime's focused on enabling customers and partners with digital workforce technology powered by conversational AI, natural language processing, and robotic process automation. He has a passion for launching and growing businesses by leveraging innovative technology, by developing new product releases to market, and achieving meaningful results in the CX space, making him a great resource and speaker for our event today. So thank you, Jaime, for joining us. Yeah, feel free. So like I mentioned, I'm going to be asking Jaime a series of questions on different AI topics. There's going to be a total of 6 questions. I'm going to pause after each one. So if you have a question related to that topic, just feel free to raise your hands and share your question with the group. All right, Jaime, you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so question 1. Let's set the stage a little bit before we dive in too deep. So Jaime, can you talk about the state of AI, specifically in contact center and customer experience technology? Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, so Emily, it's a good question. Over the last 5 years, we've seen a pretty dramatic shift in how AI is implemented in the contact center world. And it really comes down to this balance of customer experience and return on investment. The technology's enabled, organizations to be, or enable these contact centers to be faster, smarter, provide more customer service-oriented applications that they weren't not able to do in the history, or it was so expensive, it was prohibitive to do it. And so that's been a pretty dramatic change. The other part is that it's, a big part of AI has been really increasing the intelligence in these organizations. And my background is specifically in the customer experience and then the contact center domain for AI. And when you look at that, with the advent of conversational AI being used and generative AI into the contact center, it's allowed us to do things that we were just talking about 10 years ago in this area. Or dreaming about, or if we did start them, they were very large, expensive projects to do. Maybe when you first heard a conversational AI application by American Airlines 5 or 7 years ago, you were like, wow, that's a pretty big deal. And that was like a 10 million plus project to do, and it took years to implement fundamentally. That type of sophisticated project, even for typical enterprises now, could be done in weeks to months. And so that's just a major shift in the overall industry. And it's only getting better in that area. The other part of it is like, why is it, there's some data out there that shows that the contact center, we're very fortunate in that space, is that it's been one of the most active AI implementations out there. There's a reason for it. It's like where enterprises are dipping their toe into AI experiences, and because it has one of those few use cases, not only is it doing automation and it provides an ROI in fundamentally every application you do, but there's a customer experience impact. And so companies get double the bonus, right, when they're looking at it versus just I'm going to do, operations improvement or so forth. They're getting this impact that they can see not only from a ROI perspective, but from a trade-off on how they're dealing with their customers. and that means competitive advantages. And so if you can translate that into the right use cases, that literally happens in almost every use case that you implement. And so what has, can I show this?
Yeah.
I'm going to share some data that we had from one of the leading consultants in this area, Aberdeen. It just came out last year too. This is really recent intelligence that came out. They did a study on about 584 contact centers. They were trying to figure out what's best in breed and what's the impact of AI being implemented at these organizations versus organizations that didn't have AI in it. What they found was, in this world, dramatic increases in performance levels. And for those of you that aren't running contact centers, then I'm going to give a little high-level view of it. And then for those that are running contact centers, you know these issues or customer experience models. First contact resolution, service cost, employee engagement, and handle times are really big metrics of what runs what contact centers and customer experience groups manage and to run their operations. These are some of the main ones that drive, the difference between your success and failure in these operations. And what they found was AI organizations that implemented some forms of AI or a lot of it grew, literally could be 7x the improvement over organizations that didn't. So they were considered obviously best in class, and they'd done this over the last 12 to 36 months in their operations. Same things with service cost and again, improvement in average handling time. So for all of you who aren't, when our contact center folks, and when we call up these contact centers, they're always trying to reduce these average handling times, right? Because not only is that cost money to the organization to run them, more importantly, it's how efficient you are at dealing with that interaction with your customers, right? And these are always, sometimes with mature organizations, really challenging to do. And so with the breakthrough of like AI being implemented, you could see some dramatic improvements, for example. And so, today I'm going to try to share with you, like, what are they doing, right, in order to achieve these kind of results. So, Emily, maybe we can go to the next one. I just wanted to, and I wanted to relate it to something really practical. All of us have called these contact centers before, or organizations for asking for help, or, trying to find out our account balances, or whatever the reason. This is some data that we have at Five9 I'm going to share with you. And if Emily, if you're not familiar with Five9, we're a cloud contact center provider, one of the leading ones in the world. So we deal with thousands and thousands of companies, and we implement these, anywhere from very, very large contact centers to smaller ones for enterprises. But our focus is enterprise applications and contact centers. And the information to our left here is a group of our customers, in fact, showing their abandoned call rates, right? And so each dot is about a month of abandoned calls. And then on the other side of it, accounts with IVA, which these are accounts with an AI application called an intelligent virtual agent. It's like an automation application. So when you call into these organizations and you talk, and you have now, instead of having these kind of IVR applications that are kind of robotic, you have these conversational AI agents that are talking to you a lot more humanistically, but more importantly, they're also more intelligent. They're able to do more sophisticated, complex applications, and they're driven by conversational AI. So in just this use case alone, or overall use cases, the impact is that it's reduced the abandoned calls virtually across the board. So we still have a lot of opportunity in our customer base to improve it, because these are customers that aren't using the abandoned calls, the IVAs yet, and so you can see their abandoned call rate is very high. And for any of you that have run a business or contact center, that's like the death of customer service. People who hang up on you and are pissed off because they didn't get what they wanted, or they're delayed. That's like one of your biggest complaints, right? And in certain companies, if it's retail or some other operation, it's really important. And so this application, for instance, does that. And that's why that Aberdeen research really it correlates to exactly what we're seeing in the field too. That was independent. We see that across the board on the AI implementations. And this is just a good example. And it literally does this, and there's a reason for it. It's not just because of the automation that the technology is really sexy and interesting. It's from a practical perspective, when you put like for instance, an intelligent virtual agent in place, it's able to what we call deflect a call. So basically, instead of like a human agent answering and taking that call, right, a digital agent can handle that same interaction, that use case. So getting your balance or processing an order or, making an appointment that a human agent used to do. So it takes that load off of the contact center, as long as you can find that right use case. And it's not for every application, but it's for, these simple or basic or more even complex ones, but they're regular type of applications that you do on a regular basis. Now, this result here happens because just imagine when you put one of these systems in, you're able to get 10, 20, 30, 40% of your calls deflected from that contact center. So why the abandon rates go down? Well, because now you got 10, 20, 30, 40% less calls go into the contact center to the agents directly in their queues, and now they're able to handle more calls. That's it. That's the magic of it beyond the technology. They're able to handle more effectively your calls coming through. The hold times are so significantly less. And so these operations right here are running so much better than their peers that don't have these systems in place. So we eventually are going to believe this is going to be like the norm, because once you do put them in place, that's what happens. And it just, as long as you can find the right use cases, right? So that's I think a pretty good example, Emily, of improvements in this area. And the other part, why it's also, we're seeing trends and why this is being implemented, AI in general, is because there's new platforms being developed and technologies, like Five9 and others are putting it together in Wilmac, is that they're easier to implement now. With the advent of cloud computing and cloud applications, that's like one of the foundational ones. But more importantly, like open APIs are available, which make these application programming interfaces that allow systems to talk to one another are available more and more, as well as the ability to have like these no-code or low-code applications. So it's easier even for IT groups or individuals or even business users to make these applications, right? So all of that is happening, and it's just this flurry over the last 5 years. And it goes without saying, the core technologies out there that are driving this conversational AI, generative AI applications, these core engines, are a major driver. These weren't available at the level and performance they were a few years ago, and that's going to continue to grow and grow. And I think it's just probably the beginning of that explosion.
Awesome. Yeah, so a lot's happening, to summarize. We'll move into question 2 now. So Jaime, generative AI is an emerging trend. You just touched on it.
Yeah.
For those who may not fully understand it, can you walk us through it? And how's it going to impact the technology that we're talking about?
Yeah, generative AI is a great breakthrough for specifically, I think, the world and a lot of different use cases, but in the contact center world, it's a major impact. And for those of you who aren't familiar with generative AI too much, it's fundamentally a subset of AI in general, and it's ability to it's a group of algorithms that actually allow us to analyze data and then create human-like responses or results from that. So it's changing how we can process this data and different interactions. The big part of that example I just gave about being able to analyze intents in real time of what's going on in your contact center, that's generative AI doing that. And it's not the panacea to everything, because there's going to be a lot of different AI applications out there coming out. But that one, for example, generative AI is really good at like sentiment analysis. It's really good at understanding intents, like what people are talking about. It's really good at like creating things like summaries and translating. These are use cases that make it very valuable for certain use cases, and that's one of them, right? Because it can literally understand what the conversation's going on, and also understand it even from us, like not just the word level, but the sentiment of what's going on in the interaction, right? And also, we're doing applications right now that can translate a 10-minute conversation, right, or a 6-minute conversation you'll have with an agent, and literally summarize all the key points in like 2 or 3 sentences or a paragraph, so you don't have this 6-minute transcript. You got the most important points. That type of breakthrough is just amazing, and why is important? Because hey, now that agent doesn't have to kind of keep 6 minutes of knowledge in their head. They can focus in on the conversation. The summary comes out because hey, there's they have compliance recommendation requirements. They're a financial services company, or they're a healthcare organization or a government organization that has to keep this there, and it's implanted there for the next person to deal with, and it's just like that. And that's, again, a great breakthrough for generative AI that wasn't available before. And so I think you're going to see like major improvements in that area, and more use cases come out in the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years.
Awesome. Moving into question 3. So we understand that a lot of people are considering implementing AI into their organization, and they're more so in that discovery phase, that initial phase. So what can you share about the typical customer journey when adopting AI?
Maybe we can go to the next slide here. Yeah, good. The customer journey, I thought it might be good to share a visual of like what a typical contact center or customer experience group is dealing with on a regular basis. So, the top part is, how AI can affect these different areas, everything from first impressions, from engaging, predicting, and then automating, escalate, assist, and inform. Kind of break it down into those areas. I want to now kind of get into like the key use cases. This is what kind of the secrets why those Aberdeen contact centers, what they're doing. They're just using either all of these or a combination of these to achieve those results they were getting. They're either using these intelligent virtual agents, and sometimes you hear about them, intelligent virtual assistants. We shared a little bit about that. That application is used on the front end of these applications to do like the self-service, the initial engagement. Again, a good way to look at it's like a digital contact center agent that can do more complex use cases than what interactive voice response systems used before. As I mentioned, they work over all channels, and if you can find the right use cases, they usually do a one-for-one replacement for that activity that a live agent can do. Or they can do some basic things like routing it more effectively. In healthcare we do, if you ever call up a large healthcare, or hospital network, and you're trying to get to some place, and sometimes you call and they're transferring you all over because they don't know what you're getting at. Those systems is going to change. We're putting in systems now that are more conversationally oriented, so they will find that, get you there the first time, hopefully based upon what you're asking for. And that natural language routing is, you think it's a simple use case, and fundamentally is, but it's so much an important for these organizations, so they don't get those complaints on the patient journey part. But these intelligent virtual agents are being implemented there, and that's a big use case. The second part is they're eventually, there's a portion of your interactions that are going to have to go to an agent at one point in time, right? And that's good. That's okay. Now that if the intelligent virtual agents has kind of deflected the ones that they can automate. They've done their first call resolution, got those callers off. There's going to be some customers that want to talk to an agent about a specific issue. They're having a really big problem on their account, want to talk to them. They're going to be escalated. So if they've gone through an intelligent virtual agent, or if they don't have one, if they have, they will be able to carry over all the data and their interaction to that agent, so they're ready to handle them. So even if the intelligent virtual agent's only doing authentication, which is a big use case, shaving off anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute and a half off of every call just to do authentication effectively, so that the agent's ready when they get the call. And not only are they ready, they know the intelligent virtual agent will find out why they're calling. So they know, the agent knows what the problem is right away, and they can greet them by their name. They've been authenticated. They handle the app. They can handle that customer right there and go right to the root of the problem. That's what happens when they get to them. And then there's this use case called Agent Assist. You're going to hear about this more and more. It's actually like AI listening in on the conversation, being able to coach the agent to do best practices or the recommendation by the company. So it's like your AI coach with you on the call and guiding them. And so this is being used to help like organizations ramp up agent productivity right away. So there's always turnover in these contact centers, and training's always a challenge. How do you get them up to become super agent status? Usually takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to get them up to a good area. This reduces that time significantly, but it also helps give a resource to that agent that they have information and guidance to help improve that. And again, that application also transcribes that whole conversation. So if you have compliance requirements and you want to analyze this data in the future, which is really, the contact center is just this gold mine of data that we haven't been able to unlock for decades, right? It's what your customers are experiencing, it's important to them, etc. And now being able to transcribe and mine that information is going to be super valuable, right? So this Agent Assist product does that with regards to not only transcribing it, but summarizing it, as I mentioned, and literally inserting it back into your CRM if you'd like to, or keeping it so that it's available for you as an organization to analyze and understand. And there's even checklist that it can provide if you want to enable it, so that making sure that your agents are going through everything else. And if you're they use it for upselling opportunities. So, because agents are so busy and they're talking, and when's the right time to bring up, hey, we have this new credit card that might be valuable for you to look at. We got this special rate going on. Are you interested? To actually insert that conversation because somebody was talking about, I've got to refinance my home loan, right? And so that might be the right time, based upon your experience, of the best time to bring up like an opportunity to upsell them if that's important to you. And so that's that type of technology. And then that's driven by a combination of conversational AI and generative AI applications. And then as you go into what we just talked about, that use case, perfect. What AI Insights is that product that you talked about, real-time views of what's going on in your contact center. That analysis, these two have been out here probably for the last 5 to 7 years and have been improved dramatically because of large language models and conversational AI improvements in natural language. But AI Insights is literally something that's just hit the market over the last 12 to 24 months. And so you're going to see some major things happen within those use cases. And the ability to use that data. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. You all have really valuable, you have what we call, data gold in your contact center. If you can branch that off and get it out to your different departments and how they can use it, you've just enhanced that cost center to possibly like a revenue center, something that generates something for the organization beyond the support that they do. So that's another consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our typical customer journey. And you know, you don't have to do all of these things, by the way. You know, like I said, I'm just kind of giving you the insights of what resulted in those results for when Aberdeen did the results on or study on those contact centers, because we do them all the time. We see it. And you can do one of these or you can do all three of them, right? In fact, you know, depending on where you're at with your AI journey. And you know, we'll talk a little bit about what best practices are, but these are the good news for all of these. They have some ROI and customer experience improvement. It's just a matter of what your goals are and priorities.
Yep. Okay. Any real life examples that you can share? I know you touched on a couple, but any more?
Yeah. Can we get the next one? Yeah, so good. When you asked me to prepare for this is some of our data too, and I'll share it with you, but it's really common across the industry. This is an example of all the use cases that we're seeing for intelligent virtual agents in the healthcare space. So I don't know, is anybody from healthcare here? Okay, great. So healthcare is a pretty broad area, between like health systems or healthcare payers, but there's some commonality on a lot of the use cases, right? So call steering is that natural language ability that you brought up about, hey, can I, finding out where they want to go, getting them the first time and having this dialogue, having an agent, like a digital agent handle that through natural language. So that's big, right? And the reason being we see it because patient care is like numero uno on people's minds, right? Making sure that that's handled as best as possible. That's really a big focal point. And also cost, right? Fundamentally. So an ID and authentication, it goes without saying, has to be HIPAA oriented, has to be taken care of. Like that information is very valuable. That security has to be in place. And for most healthcare applications, depending on how deep they go for the use case, authentication is a big deal. And then you're seeing everything from, depending on the organization, appointment scheduling, prescription refills, frequently asked questions. Again, very common use cases being done in this area. And it's just opening up too, because we were having a discussion earlier. One of the things that's limited these automation opportunities in the case of healthcare has been, if they've had an EHR like a Epic or Cerner back end electronic health record system, those software organizations have historically been very closed to third-party applications or everything else. It's much like we were talking about banking. They're opening up. Their APIs are becoming available. It's been like, and it's being driven by the market and these kind of services, because the only way to do these type of kind of AI services is to have that kind of integration capability, right? And so you're going to see that become easier and easier as we go forward. And these are the typical use cases. The results I'll bring up, it's like I'll bring up for a payer of ours. A payer is like a Blue Cross Blue Shield or a Aetna. We have been able to reduce, like for instance, or improve their authentication rates. These guys have always had self-service applications, IVR systems forever, because they deal with millions of calls, a year, millions and millions. And just to authenticate their customers, they challenge with these, IVR applications. Maybe you get 40%, 50% containment. Conversational AI applications, 70, 80%. So it's not 100, but it's that much of an improvement. Just that specific use case was such a big difference in most every application we do, right? So just that specific there, and beyond the other use cases of finding out about their benefit statement, or are they on Medicaid or Medicare, and what kind of services you can do and so forth. So you can do enrollment even on there that you couldn't do on an IVR application, just too long, too challenging. And so it's a big breakthrough. Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of AI getting better at understanding accents?
Oh, great question. It's getting, I'm going to say, it's getting better every year. It's still not 100%, right? But I think, for instance, the model you'll find transcription, ASR or advanced speech recognition is the kind of the beginning part of that. And that is, in a best-in-class model, probably about 85%. Okay, and sometimes you get better. So that's kind of leads the discussion, but the natural language behind it uses not only content, but context. So to understand the dialogue going by it, so that enhances the understanding of these things. And so, and these AI models are getting so much better. Now they can do, like our systems can do over 140 languages and accents. And so what we don't see is like the Googles of this world and some other specialty guys like DeepGram, these are specialty ASR guys, they are making these systems better and better every day. So the more data they have going through it, the better the improvements. So we've been seeing improvements year over year, because that 85 3 years ago was like 60%. Okay.
I have to tell you, depending on the systems, it's not that good. I'm an immigrant. My parents are born with very, very strong accents, and I have to make calls to my mom because she will not go to the phone. She says she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand, first of all, and it's not Spanish, so there's no option. And then when she's terrified of the automated agent asking questions that she will say something and then God knows where she won't be correct. It's still not awesome.
It is right, but here's like when I design a system like that, I think that if you're, the data could show you how often this happens, and if it becomes a relevant point, design your system so that they go right to an agent right away. Don't let that person wait. It'll understand. If it doesn't understand it, you can set it up so it doesn't understand the first time. Get it to an agent. Get that person, because you'll handle the next one who understands 100% or 90% or 100%. And there's yes, and they're getting better at that. So the design is also really an important part of it. So again, these are ways to circumvent that. Let me go to the next one. I'll just it's interesting. Again, I want to bring this up. Banking and credit unions are just been a big area of growth, and I think things continue to be in probably the next 2 to 5 years in this area. Big users of automation. Probably one of the biggest users of automation in contact centers and communications for the last decade. They were doing phone banking 20 years ago, right? Major upgrades in the experience of using these systems by having it more conversational and over the digital channels. Really, I think relevant. It's a competitive space. People are going to expect it. So, and the security can be enhanced. So, voice biometrics or some type of other enhanced multiple security levels that you can implement in these systems, and making it so more subtle and less frictionless is really the goal in these applications. So, again, even more sophisticated applications that you weren't being able to do before, you can. And again, it's becoming easier and easier to implement.
Mm-hmm. So these are great service solutions for contact centers and banking, right?
Yeah.
What I would ask is, and I know the authentication up there is, of course, the need for fraud prevention. Talk a little bit about biometrics and what is being developed there. Is there development on fraud prevention through speech analytics?
Oh yeah. Well, the biggest area, here's the challenge with generative AI. They've also introduced these bad actors that are using it to create these synthesized voices, right? So, the game there is really the AI providers have to continuously be better, so that the organizations that we work with are constantly doing the research and analysis to understand what a synthesized voice is versus a human voice. And there's prevention options and techniques that they can do to listen to background and understanding there, or if it's too consistent and clean, it also kind of sets off a red flag that it should be a synthesized voice. Or there's a lot of different protocols that are being done there. So the enhancements, even though we're hearing these things in the news that, a couple of these might have gotten through to these types of systems, they're really also, what you don't hear is all the research being done by these organizations to make sure that it's not, that doesn't happen again, right? And so, like I know of, like for instance, the voice biometrics and their AI companies that we work with, they're literally, every time 11 Labs is like one of these guys that are coming up with these voice synthesis organizations. Every time one of those guys come up, they can actually model they have like a fingerprint basically of how they do their synthesis. That can be embedded into the technology so that anybody who tries to use that tool will be taken out. And that's how they're combating it. But it is a race, it's like who's going to be better at it. But I think that when they're and you're probably going to see even more emphasis on the security side as you go forward.
I guess it would be interesting for that account opening, you're asking the customer, hey, speak into here from now. And so that way we have a good understanding of your voice. And so that way we use that going forward when we are, it's just an interesting new journey, I guess, if you will, for the customer.
Yeah, I know enough about voice biometrics too to say that I think that even though we hear about this in the news, in reality, it takes about 30 seconds or more, minimum of 30 seconds, of somebody speaking to capture a voice print that you could even think about using for that kind of like fraud activity, and it has to be a clean response. So, like when you think about I think there's a scare out there. Hey, somebody calls me on the phone and they ask me a few questions and they're going to, replicate my voice. No, it doesn't really work that way. The technology, at least at this stage, is not that advanced that it can do that. And so, that's another part. And then the systems that'll be designed, if I were designing it, would be like do these passive approaches where you're capturing a longer cadence of voice, and that could trigger like a risk. And you can do that now with these systems. So it's able to understand the dialogue as they're going through the experience in order to flag any fraud that may come up. And that's, you're going to see more and more of that as we go through these implementations versus the traditional voice biometrics that were being done in the past.
Great question.
Yeah, in the digital channels, you can literally do, like if somebody's doing chat, you can literally translate it to another language, right? So if somebody's speaking in French in chat to the agent, it'll come back in English. That's something that's being done right now. On the voice side of it, I think it's going to get there. There are there's AI already out there that does instant voice translations, but it's not being implemented yet in contact centers in that way. I think that'll come. That'll be one of the use cases in the future, and that's what a large language model, I think, or generative AI I was talking about, is really good at, translation. But it's not at the commercial level yet at that point. But there are companies that are working on that. So obviously for travel, and I see that as like forthcoming in the next few years to be available in the contact centers.
Great.
Is it capable of doing that? Yes. Are we recommending 911 systems? No. So I think when you have, we do a lot of applications for like the AAA kind of organizations out there that can do some automation on the front end, gather information. If it's kind of health related, we try to stay away from anything that's like emergency oriented for this kind of use case right now. At least we wouldn't recommend it until it becomes 100%. That has to be 100% bulletproof. I mean that at that point, it's not great. But but like for non-emergency applications, we do like a lot of medical transport. Right? You have medical transport that's emergency oriented, right? For ambulatory kind of things, and then you have non-ambulatory. We do a ton of the non-ambulatory. So everybody who's getting picked up in the industry to get rides to different doctors and everything else, that's being automated right now. Keep the ambulatory ones that are, hey, I need a what's called again a paramedic here, or at this that should go to a live agent. At least right now in this industry, and that's how we kind of distinguish the points. But it can be very sophisticated to do the application to understand. It's just that we wouldn't recommend it for something that has to be 100%.
Yeah, I can say too, Wilmac, one of our practice groups is with public safety, so we work with a lot of 911 centers. A lot of them are very tentative to get the more upgraded, new and improved type technology. We have had a police service come to us and inquire about IVAs purely for non-emergency. So they obviously separate those out. So yeah, good points and great question. Jaime, last part of this question, but let's take a step back. Where do you get started?
Yeah, so here's some good recommendations. I think that the first thing is try to find like a goal or objective that you have from a business case perspective. Like we find that that's really important. Like, hey, are you trying to improve customer experience, or are you trying to reduce costs or contain costs in a certain area, or a combination of those things? I think that's a good starting point. So defining that goal and objective, that'll trickle into what type of use cases you would actually implement, from an AI perspective. I think the other part of it is after understanding, and it also helps you define kind of the metrics, what the outcomes you're looking for, right? So just some thought part, and that has to really come from the business. The second part of it is trying to understand like what your infrastructure from a technology perspective looks like and data perspective. Hey, do you have the enabling areas? Do you have the cloud connectivity, right? Because most of this AI is coming through the cloud. Anybody who's doing AI on-prem is probably not a good solution any longer. That was so expensive, burdensome. Only the biggest companies could do that kind of stuff in the real world. And that's why now it's available to everybody, because it's cloud-based. So you've got to make sure you've got that cloud connectivity in some form or another. That's your infrastructure. The data. Hey, making sure that you got, either data to help train the application you're going to do, so you have some history. So that's a starting point. Or that you have access to being able to use data from certain areas. So do you have those APIs available from your databases or your information centers that you want, or knowledge bases to use in this application? Very important, right? And then looking at the next step is, hey, finding the right product and technology partners with it. You don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of resources nowadays. I think, but making sure it's a good fit for you of where you're at with your AI journey. Make sure that you see that there's a roadmap, because you're not going to start with all of those applications at once, right? That's where I think you start with, one or two. You start smaller, by the way, crawl, walk, run in this area. But what I've found is if you can find the crawl, walk, run, crawl on making sure there's an ROI and improvement, your organization is going to want more and more of this, right? They're just going to fund it. They're going to like it. Your people are going to like it. Your agents are going to like it. Then you have a win-win scenario. And then obviously you have to go through your testing and implementation stage, right? So as you do your testing, there's probably going to be some tuning that has to be done in order to optimize these systems going forward. So be prepared for that, right? And so, but I'd say it's all worthwhile depending on the use case you do. Just plan for, and again, listen to there's specialists like Wilmac, Five9, others out there in the world that you can go and consult with and talk about. Sometimes it's free consulting, and then sometimes you want to go to a consultant that might be a very specialized person in this area just to help guide you through it. But those are always helpful options.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right, I'm going to keep the ball rolling because we're going a little bit longer than expected, but I'll move us into the next question. So Jaime, how do you address cybersecurity and confidentiality concerns around AI with customers?
Good question. So I think that because this is, a lot of the AI developed right now, as far as the core AI engines, are being done by some of these larger organizations or very specialized organizations. You want to make sure you're partnering or being accessible to the right area or organizations. At Five9, I'll just tell you, we have a pretty strict policy. We don't allow any of our technology partners to use our customers' data to help train their models, for instance. That's a big no-no, right? So we control that, and we use SLAs and agreements. For instance, somebody might say, oh, I can just go to OpenAI and use this large language model to create this kind of automation. It's like, no, we wouldn't do that. For instance, we use OpenAI, but we use it through Azure. And the reason why do we use it with Microsoft Azure? Because we can put strict SLA controls in there. We can define what the latency requirements are. We can define what the security requirements are. And we are going to be auditing them, making sure that they follow through. So, these are things you have to consider as you implement this. If you work, and we do that because we only deal with enterprise, right? It's expected. We only work with organizations that are HIPAA and PCI certified, right? Because we have to be for every one of our customers. It's not even an option. But there's others that aren't. So just those are kind of pitfalls to deal with. Mm-hmm. And and we try to deal with we try to be transparent. Find an organization that you work with that's transparent about how they do the policies, and you have accessibility. You know what they're doing with regards to this. That's really key because it's not always that clear in this area. A lot of startups are jumping out there and doing things. I think they're just not as mature and understanding of what the requirements are in other industries and segments. So in our case, because we're so broadly oriented, we have to know that, and we have to be that way, not only regulatory in the United States, but in Europe and Asia. So that's really important to find out.
Yeah, I think that goes well into the next question too. We wanted you to share some pitfalls to avoid when it comes to implementing these tools, along with best practices or tips and tricks.
Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So hey, best practices. I think we talked about like that project-oriented mindset, like finding a goal and objectives and so forth. I really think that a lot of these can start with an ROI, even though because conceptually you can talk about, hey, I'm going to improve customer experience. I could improve, like the way that we operate, but I think because, this is newer for some organizations, you really need a starting point of maybe what's the impact to us? So, and one easy way to do it is a financial impact. This is an example here that we use quite frequently for an IVA application, intelligent virtual agent application. So I'll just use this for example. The cost of an IVA digital agent is approximately $450 a month. Varies up and down depending on what volumes they do. But so that's what that $450. A cost for a typical agent, the lowest cost agent probably in around nowadays is $20 an hour. It's about 40,000 fully burdened, right, and throughout the United States. It ranges. A higher end agent maybe $35 in like a metropolitan area, or maybe somebody in healthcare or financial services or some of the special software, and that might be like a $70,000 a year agent, for instance. But here's the difference, and why this is kind of like this. If you get with the operations people, why they're very interested in this use case is maybe they're maybe less on the customer experience part, but they want to see the dollars and cents impact on their business. The more hours that the contact center is working, or that agent is working, the more valuable or the better return on like an intelligent virtual agent is. And that reason being is that that's a set cost per agent, $450. So the key is if you can find the right use cases that those agents are doing, and you know, you're not going to do 100% of what they do, but if you can find use cases that add up to 10, 20, 30, 40% of what their activities are, it's how you would calculate it. Mm-hmm. And so, but what we're seeing typically is anywhere from a 7x to 26, even 30x returns for implementing this type of application relative to the cost of your live agents. The key to that is finding the right use cases and putting them together. So it may be to get to 30x, you may have 3 or 4 or 5 use cases that they were doing as far as their activities. So you can take those off of the activities off of a live agent or a portion of them. And so I like to say this is an example. There's other calculators out there, and you know, we're not the only ones doing this. This is really a common model, but I think that's a good way to start. In addition to what we talked about of how you plan a project, you know, that way when you talk, you use that as a reference. You kind of validate it against, and that'll drive the use cases that you want to do and implement. And you know, again, you don't have to do everything at once. You know, sometimes 10, 20% is a great way to start. You know, 40%, fantastic. But you know, and I'd be a little more conservative on the return on these. The returns are great. That's okay. That's a good news. They're a pretty big difference as long as you find the right use cases and you get the right consulting to get there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Moving into the last question then. We'll close it out with this. What's on the horizon for AI?
Yeah, when Emily asked me to think about this, I just want to give a generic one because I think this is overall what we're going to see in the contact center world is really this combination of like a cloud contact center application with some type of conversational AI and generative AI implementation in combination, right? In probably, I don't know if it's 5 or 10 years, you're going to see probably all of them in the contact center at one point in time as organizations convert. And you know, we didn't see this as much, you know, when we saw like organizations had a lot of CPE equipment, but I think that's changing. Cloud conversions for at least contact centers is proven out to be more cost effective. It's just, you know, people have the ability to make that move, and that's becoming less and less complex. You know, we can get contact centers up in a month, right? And big ones. You know, it's not that hard any longer. The complexity comes in when you're doing AI now. Like, how do you do it? How does it work? That's becoming easier and easier to implement. You know, what used to take like say quarters to years to implement is taking weeks to months. So it's still some effort in there, but you know, the differences in these technology, and maybe you'll see another AI segment come out in the next 5 years, you know, but these two ones, conversational AI and generative AI, they go so well with the customer experience. They specialize in different things. You know, generative AI has the ability, I think, in the future to increase empathy, which is not something that we've had with these systems. So that's going to be kind of in the forefront of what's going to happen. That translation application or question that was discussed, that could be happening real time in a few years, where it's, you know, you're breaking all the barriers of communication as far as international barriers. And you're going to use these applications depending on what the use cases are. So some things are better with conversational AI and some things are going to be better for generative AI. And it really will depend on your business and your and the use case. But the good news is you'll have that option versus where, and I also think the cost will be reduced again year over year on these things. But I will say, just don't be shy about getting started, having the dialogue internally, taking a look at it. You know, take a look at what your competition's doing. That's what's driving a lot of activity too. We get these calls all the time. Hey, Jamie, so and so is doing this. They're one of our competitors. How are they doing it? What can we do? We kind of break it down because it'll become the norm versus the the nice to have in the next few years. I don't know if that's going to be 3 years or 5 years, but you're going to see more and more of this as we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie, for sharing your insight. And I hope you gained as much from that conversation as I did. That was really great. So before the quiz and some prizes, I'm going to let Ben close us out. Yes, some slides.
Thanks, Emily. All right. Did you guys see my dab in the intro? My kids taught me that. They try to keep me cool. My vocabulary ever expands. Like I know words like sus and cracked. Have you guys heard cracked yet? My daughter walked in the kitchen the other day. She's like, it's cracked. I was like, man, you freaking cracked your iPad again, like the screen? She's like, no, Dad, cracked means cool. I was like, what? So in that theme, Jamie, that was cracked, man. All right? All right, that was the cool part of the day. In a minute, we have the fun part of the day, the quiz and prizes. I'm like this lull in the middle. Okay, so bear with me here. You guys remember David Letterman? Anybody? I used to, at my grandmother's house, like I'd go there on the weekend. She'd let us stay up late. We would watch Letterman Top 10. It was a staple. So I'm telling you a little bit about Wilmac today. I thought I'd do a play on Letterman, make it a little fun. This is the top 5 things you should know about Wilmac. All right? Number 5, we are Rochester-based and community-focused. So we've been headquartered in Rochester since the 1950s, as Emily said. We're big here in Rochester. We're a resource right in town. Please use us if you want to. And we're deeply committed to the community. So we do things like the Pirate Toy Drive. We collect meals and distribute them to those in need around Thanksgiving. We do school supply collections and give them out. We do a lot of fundraiser and donations to cancer research around here, like the Pluto Cancer Center. 1330, if you guys haven't heard of it, is an awesome organization. They help kind of like the forgotten ones that have cancer, the adolescents to young adults, the guys that typically don't have it. Like young kids get a ton of focus, older people get a ton of focus. This adolescent group tends to get left behind, so they're a really cool organization. For the last almost 25 years, we were on 73 State Street, and literally Monday of this week, we moved into the 5-star building downtown. So when we looked at moving our office location and building out something new, it was very important to our leadership and our owner and CEO, Steve McDonald, to stay centered in Rochester and a part of the community. All right? Number 4, we evolve with time and technology. We are a technology company that's been around since the 50s. If you don't evolve with the times and technology, you're not going to be around, right? You guys can, I'm sure, pick lots of different examples of that. But just a quick history lesson. Founded in the 50s, we started with dictation equipment. So we've been around data capture and voice recording for many, many, many years. We got into court recording. So think about that, that's a 4-channel recording solution. You've got prosecution, defense, judge, and witness. Okay? That led us into, probably in the early 90s, getting into WFO and WEM solutions. And for many years, we resold, we implemented service and support a lot of this stuff. It got us into voice recording. So we resold and implemented things like NICE, Verint, Calabrio, Redbox. And through that, we did a lot in financial compliance, think investment banking, trading floors. We did a lot of the recording of that. Did a lot of recording around public safety. So when you talk about 911 call centers, we've been doing that for years. And from there, all of that, being multi-vendor and implementing all that, we saw common problems that our customers had. And that was when they moved from one voice recording solution to another. You had all of this legacy voice data that typically was in a proprietary or encrypted format that you either had to keep the solution or to extract it, it was costly. So we developed our own software, I'll talk about in a little bit, called Continuity Replay in 2015. So we have our own IP. That's what kind of makes us unique in this space as well. And then, as we were in this contact center voice recording world, it's been a natural evolution and transition for us to get into CCAS and CX solutions. Okay? So this is an area that we're heavily focused on, and Continuity Replay even has now evolved into an enterprise information archiving solution. We'll talk about that in a minute. Headquartered in Rochester. Through the years, we also opened up offices in New York and Toronto. We've got an office right near Penn Station, which is super convenient, and then we've got our office in Toronto is actually out by the airport. It's like Mississauga area. All right. Number 3. This one's important. We are multi-vendor and vendor neutral. So like I said, we're partnered with all of the major players out here around contact center and customer experience. We implement, service, and support all of them. We resell all of them. And what that gives us is a unique, objective, and fact-based view. So when we start to work with clients, what we bring to the table is we're able to sit on your side of the table. You guys know all technology solutions and partners and vendors out there are not created equal. So we come at it with a lens where we can sit on your side of the table and kind of take you behind the curtain, so to speak, and let you know, where these vendors excel, where their gaps and weaknesses are, what they're trying to pitch, how they pitch it, what solutions are really, enterprise class and fully scaled, and what solutions are cobbling things together to kind of make it seem that way. So as a resource right here in Rochester, leverage us. If you're looking at new technology around customer experience or contact center, just give us a call. We're just happy to share wisdom and knowledge around this. All right, you see I put the Five9 logo big and present up here. It's on purpose. Like I said, not all partners are created equal either, right? For us, Five9's super easy to work with. Their tech stack is awesome, and when we talk about CCaaS and CX, they're one of the leading vendors that we recommend, which is why we have them in the room today versus some of these other vendors. Make sense? Okay. Number 2, we have our own software, our own IP. It's called Continuity Replay, and it's really centered around data. Historically, it was voice data. Now it's become all interaction data. Talk, text, chat. We're getting into video, all of that. So like you guys have heard the saying, data is gold, right? We're in the age of data is gold. Like it's already cliche, that saying, so to speak, and Matthew McConaughey completely killed it with his Salesforce ads, if you guys have seen that. Have you guys seen those? He's like, oh, if AI is the Wild West, then is data the new gold, right? Like, so cheesy. Anyway, with Continuity Replay, it's an enterprise information archiving solution. So where it was born in the top left. You have your voice recordings from a vendor, you're moving to a new vendor, or you're taking your on-prem to the cloud. Now you have these proprietary voice recordings that are in the vendor's format, or they're encrypted, and now you either need to pay to keep that solution while you have a new one, or if you extract them, it's super expensive. Once you extract them, they're typically in a file dump that you can't search and replay with. So Continuity Replay does all of that. We have the ability at a much lower cost than these vendors to extract that historical data, convert it, decrypt it, it gets pumped into OpenWave, and then look, that's your data, right? So do with it as you please. It's your data, you should have it, you should store it where you want to, and if you need to use it for search and replay, you should be able to, all right? That's where Continuity Replay was born. It has turned from just voice recording to pulling in chat and text and video, so basically all customer interaction. And it's now at the point where, let's say you move from one vendor to another, we can take your legacy data, interaction data, and then now you have a new production system. We can pull that new production system data and marry everything behind one pane of glass for regulatory, compliance, search and replay, you name it. Solution works very well in heavily regulated industries that have either regulation or compliance around retention time. So if you have to store this customer interaction data for 7, 5, 10 years, whatever it is, data can be stored in the cloud. You have access to it. Any questions on this? Pretty straightforward. All right. Number 1, why would you work with somebody like Wilmac? Maybe you see it in the event that we've put together today, but like we've prided ourselves for the last 30 plus years in this data archiving space on providing an elevated level of service than you would get from like a major vendor. So we approach everything with white glove service. You guys ever have issues, you call someone like me, you call someone like Charlie, you call our Director of Delivery and Implementation, Christina, and we're right here in Rochester. We literally can be to any of you within 20 minutes. You guys know this being here in Rochester, or Buffalo and 50, Tony, or 45, depending on how you drive on the thruway, right? So white glove service, and look, we love to have fun. You guys see me kind of poke fun at myself and other things as I'm up here presenting, but We love to have fun. Conference that Emily and I and Christina did, baseball games, Enterprise Connect. Anybody ever been to Enterprise Connect? It was a pretty cool show that we did. Axe throwing, dinners. We love to celebrate success too. When you guys win, we win. We love to celebrate it, right? Except for Jim. You know, Jim's a Bills fan. He's pretty angry at the Patriot. We had to go to Boston for a show one day, and it looks like you're going to punch that guy, Jim. All right. Look, with that, the event ends at 10. We got the quiz coming up very quickly. We do have the room past 10 if anybody wants to chat or ask questions, that kind of thing. I just want to thank you all for coming. Really awesome that you took some time out of the day to spend with us. Hopefully this event was worthwhile. If I don't get to chat with you, I will be following up just to gather some feedback on what went well today, what didn't go well, where can we improve and do better when we do these things, because being active in Rochester, we want to do more of this, and more of this with folks like you, different topics, things like that. So just real spot check real quick on this morning's conversation with Jaime and Emily. Quick thumbs up, medium, thumbs down. How'd we do? All right, cool. Looks good. All right. Thanks, everybody.